my name is Bill Fanning. I'm part of the team here at Talk and really excited for everyone to be here. My thought for today was to just have a discussion around sourcing. And the reason I put this together is because I had been going through the discussion forum and had noticed that that was a theme of conversation that people were asking questions about. And that made me feel like it might be a really good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about that. And I'm just going to go into talk just for a second here. Um, For anybody who is new, this is our platform, and I encourage everyone to go in and look. Um, you can see that we're got a number of conversations going, polls going, and events being set up that we're working to put together. One that's coming up that I am super excited about is with Helke Shellman. He wrote a book called The Algorithm, and it is specifically targeting AI in the recruiting process. So let me just show you what this looks like real quick. Because I think and what's really exciting about this is she is not a talent person. She is a TED Talk, Wall Street Journal author, and a TED Talk presenter. And she dug into how AI looks at hiring, monitoring, promoting, and firing employees. Book is great, by the way. I've read it. I highly encourage you if you want a little bit of a deeper dive into the impact of AI in our world. It's a great source of information. But if you have a chance to attend this, I'd highly encourage it because I'm just excited to have her share her findings with us. Again, super smart person and definitely has some great content. But for those of you who are new to Talk, these are our events. These are our discussion forums. This is where we go in and have conversations around sourcing and comments like this, walking away from LinkedIn. Well, I wanted to have this conversation because that's such a staple to what we do. We also have the polls going, and it looks like Indeed is probably going to be the scary costume coming to the Halloween discussion next week. You can still be a ghost, a vampire, or werewolf, but definitely seems like Indeed's winning. And we have updated the vendor directory, and we're going to continue to work on this. And this is a great area. If you have an opportunity to go in and lead reviews, part of the mission of this side of the system is to help be an educational tool for other members that are considering technologies. So if you go through the discussion forum, you see a lot of great questions around uh, just today, I've seen Seek Out, Hire Easy, Scotty AI, a bunch of different technologies people are looking at. And by either adding them to the directory or mentioning your experiences with them, it helps all of us learn more and be more prepared for whatever we're tackling within our organizations. So I'm going to put this back on present mode. So that's kind of the goal of today. So couple quick updates. I mentioned the exciting speakers. One that I'm really excited about. We are having a dinner in Chicago next week. We've got a bunch of people signing up for it, which I'm excited for. It does have a limitation of how many people can go. So we'll be working on that later today. And again, as I mentioned in the platform, any vendor reviews or vendor suggestions that you have just make the platform better for all of us. So please feel free to reach out, let me know. You can connect with me on chat, anything in that area. And again, I never knew you could build presentations in Canva or that it had such a depth of Star Wars themed screens. So I got all excited playing with it. So you have to bear with me. Um, so so yeah, that was kind of my takeaway from the discussion forums and what was I thought would be fun to talk about. So agenda, I mean, I think we know why sourcing is a hot topic, but I wanted to talk a little bit about that. What in the sourcing world are some areas of concerns? I wanted to talk about some of the traditional tools and their limitations, because I think there's a lot of platforms that I've certainly had experience using that probably we're all using and starting to question whether there's a better alternative out there. From that, I thought we could talk about that. What are some of the new tools and emerging trends that we see? And then share any best practices or learnings. And then I'd love to get some closing thoughts from people. If you've learned something new or had found something interesting from the discussion, just calling that out is always helpful. So with that, I'm not going to keep the presentation up the whole time. But see, got carried away with Star Wars. Traditional tools and their limitations. What I was really curious about is when we look at the tools out there, and I predominantly, not because they're the only one, but just because I think they're a large one that all of us have experience using. LinkedIn's been a staple for sourcing, connecting with applicants or candidates. And I've noticed that a lot of people are starting to have questions around the cost model, the effectiveness. I want to just have a quick discussion around that and talk about, what are some of the limitations that you may be experiencing with it, and what are some of the ways that you may be thinking about evolving past LinkedIn, adding to LinkedIn. But I thought that might be fun to talk about. So as a starting point. So I'm going to shut my screen off. Definitely just an open discussion forum, but that is a question. LinkedIn has been a staple for a lot of us have used for finding, sourcing, engaging potential applicants for our openings. What are the limitations that we're experiencing that are generating some people to think about other options out there?
I would just share, we use LinkedIn. I think the limitation is you're at the mercy of the individuals accepting your invitation and the amount of emails. So we're navigating more towards Zoom info, where you can actually get a lot more information, drill down on the company, drill down on the role, and it actually gives you their phone numbers and email. So I think we're pivoting a bit and using a combination of both, but we're finding Zoom info to be really helpful with passive candidates.
It's a great example. I definitely have used that information similarly. I didn't use Zoom info, but I used Apollo for similar. And the reason I used Apollo, by the way, is because I found it to be more accurate on mobile numbers than Zoom info. And because I'm I'm cheap, you can get a certain amount of free numbers a month without having to pay Apollo just by plugging in the Chrome extension. So I use LinkedIn, but I bring Apollo in through a Chrome extension, and then I can find and engage people that way pretty effectively. So anyone else had any challenges with LinkedIn? I know the cost of it is one thing that we've certainly talked a little bit about from moment to moment. And I know that can be an issue. I think I saw somebody mentioned in one of the chats it was $6,500 a seat. Does that sound accurate?
I think it's more than that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
if you've got a huge number of seats that you're buying, maybe they negotiate down, but I thought it was closer to 10K.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so as well, but I had seen that in one of the discussion forums that somebody said they were looking at $6,500 a seat. So it made me question 10K. And yes, I was saying Apollo. It's a great tool. It's a great people finder. And the reason I liked Apollo is I found its data accuracy to be slightly better when it comes to mobile numbers than Zoom info. For emails and stuff like that, it's kind of a push, but that was the one thing I got value from in Apollo. And if you're curious, I'm happy to show you how it works. It's super simple.
Hi, my name is Carla Leal here. I wanted to give you some feedback also on LinkedIn. Yes, I
Sure.
think LinkedIn is the same for me. It's happening that the response rate is really, really low on LinkedIn. I do not know if it's that not too many people are on LinkedIn all the time. I don't know if we are, just too many of us approaching the candidates and they just decide not to just respond back. But it's really challenging. We pretty much are sourcing out of our ATS instead of LinkedIn. And it's so challenging on LinkedIn, and we're paying per seat, per recruiter, and we have different operational units. So it's super frustrating. So I'm looking forward to that Apollo. I will be happy to learn more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to share with anybody, and I can show it to you in a second, but if anyone has any questions, definitely feel free to chat with me and I'm happy to talk about it. And I will say that I think one of the challenges with LinkedIn is there are a lot of companies that have developed automations or to sit on top of the in-mail process to automate that and schedule around that. And so it's blown up the amount of in-mails we all receive. And that has definitely diluted the effectiveness of it because um, just me alone, I probably get 5 in-mails a day on a light day, sometimes more. But they all seem to be uh, bot generated rather than people generated. I could just kind of tell by the way they're. A lot of times my name is first name instead of actually my name. It doesn't show up or something like that. So I see a lot of that happening. So I definitely think that is impacting it. Um, One question I had that's interesting to me, coming from the job board world, what or how does anybody find effectiveness through Indeed still or are using it? And I'm asking that because I've been reading some crazy articles, like for the example of, I'm saying this right, Indeed is suing ZipRecruiter for ZipRecruiter saying things that aren't true about Indeed. And then I think ZipRecruiter is countersuing Indeed. Um, yeah, I think what happened is there was a story that went out that Indeed was no longer taking organic, i.e. free postings. And so the entire ZipRecruiter sales team called up everybody in the world and said, hey, did you hear this is happening? This is why you should use us. And so now Indeed is suing them for doing that because I guess it wasn't 100% true. So, although I always felt like when I talked to Indeed, it was never 100% true. That's just me. So, I'm curious if anyone's using tools like that, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and finding anything effective with them.
So we use Indeed, and it's actually one of the bigger drivers of candidates to us inbound. Um, but we have, we use the paid sponsorships, and I think
Sure.
that really helps get it to the top of the list with the branding and everything. But yeah, they did. I think they got rid of the free career pages. I think that's what it was because our rep called us to let us know that we were now going to stand out more because other people were not getting the free pages.
That is a good spin. I like that. That's a clever rep. You're going to
I
stand
have to
out more.
say that was I'm not always pleased with how Indeed sort of, I feel like they're constantly just like trying to catch up. They are still by far the most inbound candidates. Like we get thousands and thousands of candidates from them. And still probably close to 25% of our hires come from Indeed. So Indeed's still performing great. We pay for the job sponsorship, not for every job, but for a lot of our jobs. But I mean, my account rep called me in August and was like, yeah, your company page is going to get turned off in September unless you give us $30,000. And I was like, well, who has $30,000 in their budget in September? Like, what are you talking about, dude? So yeah, so we just don't have we just don't have company pages anymore, or at least they're super bare minimum. And now I'm trying to convince my marketing team and my leadership team that when our hiring is down, I should be increasing our recruiting costs. So anyway, I'm a little disappointed in Indeed's sort of lack of focus on the people who pay them. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
their
no.
platform still wildly outperforms everybody else. LinkedIn's been pretty good for us. Their AI stuff has really been helping. The person who said that they weren't getting the response rates, it's super disappointing, but if we use the AI generated ones, we're getting way better response rates.
Interesting.
So whatever magic they're doing on the back end, I mean, they need to be tweaked a little bit here and there to make sure that they're not, crazy sounding. But when our recruiters are using the ones that are basically generated for them, it's they're doing pretty well. And in the last year, our LinkedIn went from like 13% of our hires to 20% of our hires. So
Really?
we've seen LinkedIn's performance jump significantly in the last year. I'm paying on the nose for it, but it's been working.
Yeah, they definitely are not afraid to charge for their performance. And I think that is a great observation. So for those of you who didn't see it in chat, um, I'm sorry, Glassdoor 7 or 8 years ago came up with the sponsored career page package. I think at the time it was $10,000 for a sponsored career page where they'd put all your information and positive and negative reviews and those things. And that was part of their package sales. As Indeed or Recruit.com acquired Glassdoor into that family, it seems like Indeed is adopting that strategy of charging for the career page as well as the job postings. Although it sounds like it's 3x of what I had experienced with Glassdoor, which was 10. I think I paid 10K.
So with the 30K gets you the company pages on both platforms.
Okay.
So I don't know if that makes anybody feel any better. But that's sort of the for how long they've been merged, I'm actually a little shocked that they haven't actually literally merged stuff on the back end. Because it's been years now.
It has been quite a while.
So there still seems to be two very different like sales teams and different platforms, and it still seems like two very different products, but then there's these weird crossovers in the back. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting model, and you're right. I'm very curious why. I think there's value to both brands, and so they continually to bring that value to the market. Um, but I definitely am hearing a clear message that people are getting very good inbound return from their efforts with Indeed and with LinkedIn. So for the increase from 13 to 20% with LinkedIn, do you accredit any of that to the AI capabilities that rolled out to message writing and things of that nature? Is that part of what's improved the performance, or just that it's just improving?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think their AI is just getting better on the back end. It's just making it easier to source. I mean, as soon as you put a sponsored job out there, it automatically creates a project for you. It automatically puts a pipeline in for you. It's now writing the emails for you. So it's made sourcing way easier from that perspective. But I also think for our company in particular, we hire a lot of RNs. And so they've done a bunch of marketing on their end to actually get healthcare workers on their platform, because 4 years ago, we would look on LinkedIn and there just wouldn't be any RN. Like they were there, but not in the masses in which they actually exist in the marketplace. And so LinkedIn's been doing a lot from that perspective. And I think that's helped us in particular. And then also we went remote. And so that has changed things a bit too. So, I mean, we went remote when COVID happened, but then we made the decision to stay remote. And so things like intern positions and that kind of stuff, where we used to spend a lot of time on very targeted campuses, now we just post them and we get like 1,000 candidates instantly. And so almost all of our interns came from LinkedIn this year. So things like that, I think, are bumping up our numbers a bit.
Yeah. Interesting side note. My wife is in the medical field, and I helped her set up her LinkedIn profile about 18 months ago because she was like, "Gotta be on this." And I was like, "Well, let's do it." And then we sat for 30 minutes going through pictures. No. Oh, that's a no. So I had to get the right, the right view to make sure it was perfect. So, some great comments in chat. Brandy, you just made one that I thought was really interesting, that you use Indeed and get a lot of applicants, but their 1% return on converting to hires, and the retention rate and quality on Indeed of candidates are worse. Just a quick question, if you don't mind sharing, what type of people are you hiring for? What are the roles that you're trying to fill?
Yeah, so coming from the restaurant industry, so we have our corporate roles that we're hiring for, and then we also have, hourly positions. So like team member positions, shift leader positions, and salary general manager, which kind of falls like in between, I think, those hourly roles and like those corporate positions, right? Like it's that weird salaried position with lots of responsibilities. So that's what we're seeing kind of in the restaurant space, or at least we are in the organization on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I always think of those roles in my mind, I call them skilled labor. they have a skill set based on their experience in the role, and they've probably done something for a while, so they've moved up in the ranks, and they're bringing that skill and knowledge to the table. So, but yeah, definitely. The reason I ask that is because I do know that there are a lot of people in certain industries employing bots to apply for them. And so that was one of the things that I've noticed. I've heard other people talk about incidentally, was that they're getting a lot of applies through Indeed, but it seems like it's a generated process rather than a sincere apply. So I didn't know if that might have been what was driving it, but I do know that I watched my son in action, and I think he applied for like 3,000 jobs in one of his Modern Warfare games. So,
Wow.
and so you can tell he was really focused on applying for jobs because he's playing Xbox while he's doing it. But I think that's part of what's driving the low conversion ratios, is that the ability to apply for jobs now, especially on Indeed, because it's heavily mapped by a lot of technologies, is just a push of a button, and you set up what you want and it's off and running. But that's interesting.
Yeah,
And
we use iCIMS, and so we
mhm,
turned on the easy apply and started getting just sort of flooded with candidates. So we also have affirmative action. So we started to realize very quickly, like, oh no, they're not being asked our EEO questions. And so what we set up is that when they come in to our system, they come in as incomplete application, and then they are automatically sent another email that says, hey, thank you so much for expressing interest in this position. If you'd like to finish or complete your application, click this link, and then it takes them through the questions. So it's the EEO questions, and then if there's any job questions that are associated with it. And that has helped significantly. I'm sure some of those emails get lost in spam. I mean, there's I'm sure an issue, but if you get 500 candidates into the incomplete bucket, you'll get like 200 in the complete bucket. So that's been helping sort and sift a little bit. But yeah, it's people, my team is like, yeah, they don't even know who I am or like why I'm calling or what company I'm from.
yeah, yeah.
So it's the whole like one click apply thing has yeah, it hasn't been great for us. You can tell the Indeed, the resumes, they come through and they look like the Indeed resume. So you sort of instantly know that this person clicked a button to apply, right?
Yeah, yeah. And and that also creates a resume review challenge that I've experienced, where all of a sudden now because you want to give fair and equal consideration to anybody who's coming in. But when you have 2,000 resumes come in 48 hours, it then becomes a challenge to quickly and effectively go through them, and evaluate them, which is where some other technology is starting to emerge to help with that process. But the easy apply process, or the quick apply, and Ashley, I definitely can recognize shutting that off is something you can run into. But absolutely, an interesting challenge to go through. That was my experience, where all of a sudden I'm sitting there with 500 resumes, and I want to be fair, right? Because I've seen and experienced with a lot of my friends and coworkers, and I do a lot of work with veterans, to help them rewrite their resume and acclimate themselves to fundamentally not talking in acronyms, which seems to be an instilled military thing, is everything's an acronym. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great for you, and I get it, but nobody else does. So let's just stop that right now. Anytime you feel like putting in an acronym, you can. But so but yeah, same. To evaluate and look at those resumes take time. Well, that's awesome. So I think that's very insightful. So, and one of the things that I've heard is that, and anyone can correct me if this is too generalized, but um, Indeed is a great source for inbound. LinkedIn is still performing, but it's expensive. So my next thought that I wanted to spend a couple minutes on is new tools, or emerging trends. So in collaboration with this, the ability to source, like Zoom info. Like, if we had this conversation 18 months ago, I don't know if that would be a name that would be coming up, from my perspective, or Apollo. But they do because they work now, and I think for that inbound, for that sourcing capability, that's really interesting. A couple of the technologies that I've heard mentioned in our forums are Hire Easy, and I think they're a great platform. Seek Out, which is another great platform, and I'd be curious how we've integrated or started to embrace those newer technologies as part of the overall technical stack that we're using to manage this process. So has anyone tried any of those platforms or evaluating any of them? And
We
Beth,
looked
I
at
have
them
not.
we looked at them a while ago, so they probably could use another sweep. Our experience was that when we did searches, what it typically fed back to us was just their LinkedIn profile. And so we weren't really sure what benefit that gave us. And since I had just signed a long, like a 4-year contract with LinkedIn to try to get their pricing down, it wasn't really worth spending more money. But I'd love to hear if people are using Seek Out, Zoom Info, some of the other aggregators to see if those are performing better. I think it's been probably a year and a half since we did our trials.
Yeah. And I think you just used a word, Paul, that's really relevant as I looked at these. Like when I was at HR Tech and I walked around, one of the questions that they're aggregators, which means they have multiple data sources. If all you're doing is sourcing you're automating the LinkedIn process, you're not aggregating, you're just an efficiency tool. So that to me was one of the things that I always ask when I walk up to the AI sourcing tools: what does your data pool look like? Where are you sourcing these people from that enable me to see more people from more distinct locations? And one of the things I always like to drill down is diverse applicants as well, right? So I get what LinkedIn is and does, but are you tapping into sources of applicants that might be coming from unique places? And yeah, again, I always went down the veteran path, but it's certainly important to be able to bring in a more diverse crowd if you have the ability to do that with these engines. So yeah, I definitely agree. But with that thought, how have other people potentially looked at that?
So, Bill, we are currently, I have to my camera on, sorry. We are currently evaluating a tool called Noon.ai. We are about to launch a 2-week pilot with them. But I've been so far with the demos, you never know. But so far with the demos, I've been impressed with, it's a little bit more unique than some of the tools that I've looked at. In the way that it interacts with the recruiter. Like the learning curve feels really low for like a newer or junior recruiter to really get into sourcing, because you don't have to speak to it in Boolean. It's not speaking in just keywords. You can speak to it in natural language and the way that you would get feedback from a hiring manager, right? So it was like showing me a demo of finding a software engineer in the payments industry who wasn't too, quote, jumpy, something that you would hear from a hiring manager, right? And it was able to interpret what that language meant in a way that was more robust than most of the other tools that I have seen. So I'm curious to see. It's called Noon.ai, Ashley. So I'll keep you all posted. But so far, I've been impressed with the demo. Our pilot starts, I believe, next week. So we'll see.
That's awesome. That native language capability, I love. I
Yes.
saw some when I was at HR Tech. I didn't see Noon, but I saw that native language capability and a couple cool technologies. One of them was called, for assessments, interviewing technical people, was called Ropes AI. And I was just blown away because first the founder looked like he was 12, and I was like, oh my God, you're awful smart. He really does, though. I walked up and I'm like, okay, yes, I'm old now. But you can generate a technical assessment by just typing in, like, I need somebody who can help me build. And I think what he showed me was building a better interactive map for Disneyland that understands Python and lives in Florida. and it built the assessment on the fly for that specific role. And what I loved about it, because this is the challenge I've had, is I'm not the right guy to interview a technical resource because I can't speak their language or put that stuff together. And this handcrafted right there using AI, an effective assessment based on the role you're trying to fill. And it was unique, it was specific, and it's unhackable using some of the Copilot tools that are out there. So I thought that was a very cool use, but not to go off on a tangent, but I love the native language. And that was one that really stuck with me walking away from HR tech. And May asked a great question, Beth. How much per seat for Noon AI, or what does that cost model look like?
Yeah, I was just typing. Sorry, I'm off camera because I'm eating.
That's
But,
okay.
they didn't do seat pricing. It was really more based on like the number of your openings and the usage of the AI. But we were quoted about 15,000 annually. I have a team of 3 recruiters. We probably hire somewhere in the realm of 200 to 250 annually. So that was the quote that we got. So I don't know what it would be like on a per seat or like depending on the size company. They were a little bit, I will say they were a little dodgy. I had to really press them to even like get an annual pricing because they really wanted you to do the pilot first before, so they could assess like how much you're going to use it and what that's going to look like. And I was like, look, I'm not even going to do a pilot with you until I have a general idea of what I'm going to have to spend annually. So, I had to push to kind of get that.
When you talk to them, did you get into what databases they source from?
Yeah, so it was LinkedIn, but it was also other sources. It's not just LinkedIn. They do an aggregate of the entire like internet. And what was cool is that you could actually kind of see a little bit behind the curtain as far as like how the AI was working, and you could essentially kind of teach the AI as you went, because it's sourced, and it would bring you like 3 example candidates that you could provide feedback on. Like, this is sort of on the right track, but I need somebody who, has been in their roles longer, or, whatever. This person works at a payments company, but doesn't work on the payment product. So I need, somebody who's actually worked on the payment product. And then it would recalibrate the search.
That's very cool. Thanks for that.
Sure.
Awesome. Anyway, I definitely know that Paradox has some tools out there, and it's expensive, and so 15K a seat is definitely not for everyone. But and Sinecure, Brandy, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sinecure AI. It sounds like it's a similar sort of platform. Is that from a pricing standpoint? How did they put that? Because that's one of the things I'm always curious of, how people are putting the monetizing their services. Did they share that with you?
Yeah, no, we went through a demo, and we decided internally that we were gonna kind of talk of, we wanted to move forward with like a pilot like Beth was going through. But no, we didn't get pricing. We didn't discuss that fully. We don't think it's kind of in our cards right now. We don't think it'll help us in that capacity for what we're looking for.
Awesome. Has anyone used HireEasy or any of the tools that we're or is anyone using Seek Out in their sourcing model?
I've used Seek Out in the past, but we just started using HireEasy, and I definitely get a different list of candidates than I do just using LinkedIn. We have LinkedIn right now, the full LinkedIn recruiter, and we definitely pull more candidates using HireEasy. Plus, it has a diversity feature as well, so that helps in terms of that. But you're able to create campaigns, which I know right now on LinkedIn, they have it where they can do a follow-up. But with the email campaigns in HireEasy, you can set it up to 6, I think is the default, 6 emails that will continually go out synced. You can set your, how many days in between those get sent out. You can customize it. You can even do email on behalf of, say, if you're sending for a hiring manager, just to gain more traction that way versus coming from a recruiter. So there's a lot of options with it, I feel like, and we're just starting to build it out here, but I've also used it at a past company as well.
Awesome. That's good to hear. I've was, I spent some time with them at HR Tech and was impressed by their technology, and really think it's well, maybe not the best one out there. It's definitely one of the leaders, from what I've experienced. Just my personal opinion. I have no data to back that up other than just evaluating or getting to walk around, look at a bunch of different text. And Christopher, I've never heard of Covey. Um, is that a new technology, or is that a platform or a solution part of a bigger player that they've added to their solution set?
So I haven't used it, but just from what I gathered, after I heard some people talking about it, it's a CRM ATS, and they have this AI Scout, they're calling it, that goes outbound and inbound. Um, so it was a few agency people that I heard talking about it, and that's what kind of turned me on to checking it out. I haven't done any demos or anything, but I was curious if anyone else had heard about it.
Yeah, I have not. That is a new name. Has anyone else heard about the Covey?
I haven't, but can you say more about AI Scout? What does that mean? And what does it do?
From what
Especially
I
from an outbound perspective specifically.
Yeah, so like I said, I just looked at the website. So,
Okay.
what I gathered was it's probably similar to some of the other tools that we've seen here, is that you're putting in your parameters and it's sending its AI out and sending back like, hey, here are the profiles. That's what it
Okay.
looked like. But again, I just had a kind of a cursory look at it.
Mhm.
Okay. I was wondering if it was actually then contacting people, right? Like if there was an actual contact happening via the bot, or if it was just a profile finder. That's fine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I threw the link in there for the web page that I found about it.
Thanks for doing that. Yeah, no, I was just looking at it as well, and it looks very interesting. One of the things I've noticed in some of these AI driven tools, is that they focus on certain role types, frontline, high volume, whatever. Um, so I'm curious. I would be curious, with Noon or with AI, with Covey, if that is something that they have a broad spectrum of types of folks. Like, I know higher easy and some of the other people can. And by the way, if you can hear it in the background, I'm sorry that my dogs are going nuts. Somebody is delivering something at my house, and they're alerting the masses that somebody's here. Um, but yeah, no, that's very cool. I will definitely look into them. I love learning about new tech out there. Um, so, and I think Greg just asked a great question. If anyone's using or automating the qualification stage using bots or AIs, to do that first round evaluation. And I do know, in the discussion forums and something I've experienced myself, that inbound resume flux, and we talked about it a second ago with Indeed, we get a massive amount of folks coming in. Is anyone using AI to do that first evaluation, uh, to look at people and help whittle down the stack to better focus on the qualified folks that are in there?
We use Clear Company, and they just rolled out AI tools that essentially do that. And there's a free demo until like mid-November. I don't think we'll move forward with it, but essentially it grades and ranks candidate inbound, so the resumes we get in, it'll say so I presume with high volume jobs is probably best. So if you're getting 700,000 resumes, it puts kind of a ranking to say, hey, these resumes are the best or best fit, kind of as a prioritization. So it's not like a screening, a full-on screening tool, but it supposedly kind of ranks based on match with the job description.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful. And so, I've noticed, or it seems to me that a lot of ATS systems are bringing that technology into their process management to help you do that. I actually sat with Jim Miller, with it from Ashby, He's actually going to be speaking in November, talking a little bit about technology, but he walked me through kind of how Aptly is approaching that. It's similar approach where the AI is going out and looking at all of the applicants, and based on the job description and some criteria that you can put in on top of that, it's showing you or grading based on a numerical scale who is potentially a good fit, which is very helpful.
Yeah, we're iCIMS has rolled out a version of it in their new iCIMS, which is their newer version of their I guess UI, and that's been kind of the issue for us, is that they've rolled it out on the new iCIMS, but we haven't implemented the new iCIMS because the new iCIMS can't do everything that the old iCIMS can. So we're kind of in this weird limbo period of time where the talent acquisition team has access if they want to go into the new iCIMS and look at candidates that way. But we haven't implemented it yet because we're just not super confident that it's actually pulling out the right people. And that's more of an internal issue of, not every job description is maybe as robust as it needs to be. Our hiring has slowed down since the Great Resignation. So we're starting a whole new project to start working on that stuff. So I'm hoping within the next year that we'll be able to turn that on. But there's a lot of factors that play into that. And I don't know what the other tools are like, but iCIMS is dynamic. So every time someone new applies, it changes the ranking of everybody. And so you can't necessarily come up with like a standard. We are going to look at the first 100 people applied. Like from an affirmative action standpoint, I'm struggling with, I can't even say we're always going to look at tier 1 and tier 2 candidates, because the tier 1 and tier 2 change. And you can't report on it because it changes. And so I'm a little bit discouraged, to be honest, at this moment around how to, if we weren't an affirmative action company, we could just turn it on and start playing around with it and start using it. But because we have to have really stringent rules around how we're looking at candidates, it's been a lot more complicated than I would have appreciated.
Yeah, definitely can appreciate that. And a lot of the, or not a lot, but somebody had mentioned smart recruiters, and they have put a lot of marketing around their new approach to that with Winston, who was characterized as a little green alien, I think, but which definitely I saw a lot about on LinkedIn and some of the other platforms out there. So it definitely, Beth, you mentioned that they have a match score there and a five-star scale.
Yeah.
But you're taking it with a grain of salt. Has it been helpful, or is it just like
It's helpful in the high volume.
run?
Yeah, it's helpful in the high volume for us to kind of start with, hey, we could start with the 4 and 5-star candidates and then kind of work our way through. But at the same time, I mean, one of the things that we have struggled with some of our high volume is the validity of candidates. And right now there's no way to gauge that. So probably 2/3 of the quote unquote 5-star candidates that we have for software engineers, when we do a little digging, we kind of find that they more than likely are not legitimate candidates. And we've even received guidance from our private equity around the FBI is investigating some of these kind of bad actors really infiltrating on the IT side, trying to gain employment from other countries, kind of with stolen identities and that sort of thing. So we're trying to be really mindful of that. And unfortunately, it seems like they have the ATS gamified pretty well, and they know how to score well against those AI tools. So, again, the best scoring candidates most of the time are our least legitimate candidates.
Well, that's an interesting observation. I know I read an article not too long ago. Some of you may have seen it, about I believe it was a young woman looking to get a job in the large 4 consulting organizations, and she was getting nowhere with gaining interviews. And so she started using AI to read the job description and then to write the perfect resume matching that job description. And all of a sudden she was the top standing candidate and received interviews from all four of the major consulting organizations. So I could definitely see how that is out there and a challenge. Very real, very sizable. And it's funny, I think probably at some point, hopefully, some of the ATS systems will identify that that's happening and put some tools in place that will not leave you in that situation where your best ranked applicants are not real. Because that would not be, it's not a good use of your time or investment in the technology, whatever you're using, if that's what it's doing. So Stephen, I'd love to learn a little bit more. I definitely have heard of GEM and understand them, but love to hear a little bit more how it's a game changer. That's really a great statement.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I'm listening to everybody talking about the job postings and how they're getting hundreds and hundreds of applicants. We get maybe 2 to 5% of our candidates through applications because it's all direct sourced. And Bowler is actually a civil engineering land development consulting company. It's highly competitive across the country. And so everything that we do has to do with direct source networking or employee referrals. And because of that, we've spent years using LinkedIn Recruiter, and we've tapped what you could call the total talent marketplace, and we have everybody in our database. So it's not like we're only really looking for people who are new, that are new to LinkedIn that we don't have. And so LinkedIn was also charging us $222,000 for LinkedIn Enterprise. And yes, Paula, wait till you hear this. Now, my team is about 18 people. They sent us a notification that it was going up to 386,000. And so obviously that was not something that we could continue with. It was still robbery. We weren't getting anything out of it because most of the people that were messaging on LinkedIn is either half of them have their notifications turned off. So they're not even really getting the message. And so we had to figure out a different way to address the talent. And we know that direct email, phone calls, old school recruiting has been getting through. And so we actually reviewed a bunch of different CRMs, including iCIMS. We have iCIMS as our applicant tracking system, and we look at their CRM. And GEM was just unique because it's using multi-channel sequential messaging. It's using marketing tools for open rates, click-through rates, response rates. They have AI search components that are going through everything that's in there. And there's an easy little app that we can go on LinkedIn and immediately import that candidate through just by downloading their PDF, and it immediately parses them. And we can add them to different talent pools in which we can then automatically set up sequential messaging. Yeah, obviously you can tell that I'm in the middle of a large implementation in doing this, but we're actually getting rid of iCIMS too, because iCIMS has never really proven the value in which we needed it to do. And I think if anybody using the older iCIMS tries to do any kind of analytical reporting, yeah, you're taking it out into a spreadsheet and then manipulating it, or it's not giving you the dynamics that you need. But we use Rocket Reach as our, to look up phone numbers. GEM actually automatically looks up emails, and they actually have a premium component that comes with it that will look up additional emails. And so a lot of times we'll get multiple work emails or multiple personal emails for every single person. What they don't do is look up phone numbers. So one of my sourcing leads is actually on this call, so he's listening in on this. We actually went to White Pages, and we were having a lot of luck finding phone numbers. It's amazing. I mean, they are the ultimate source of phone numbers. So we actually did pretty well. But
yeah, I've used White Pages before as well, and it does work good. And then the and not in no way, shape, or form am I related or affiliated with Apollo, but it does do a really good job of but it's just really, because you find somebody on LinkedIn, like, God, I want to talk to that person. And then you just click a button and it gives you the mobile number. And so for me, I don't know if anyone else has found this, but I have found texting to be extremely fast in getting people to respond around a career opportunity. I love it. And that's why I love the mobile numbers, because while I send it, you know, you send 100 emails and get 3 back, you send 10 texts and you get 9 back. You know, for me, it's just such a powerful way to connect with people.
Yeah. If anybody, I think Amy mentioned something about it's hard to recruit because they have embedded systems. If you don't know what multi-channel sequential outreach is, look it up, explore the idea, because it's great, because you can send an email and automatically send a text messaging a couple days later, and then send a follow-up email, and then you can automatically have a hiring manager or somebody else send out a message that's automatic. And then it will, if they reply back, it automatically turns them off the sequence. And you just have this way of nurturing great talent. I've used Fetcher, Seekout, and Intello. And the only challenge that I have with them, they give you good information. It's that interface of trying to have that one source of truth, of having everything in the applicant tracking system or CRM where you're managing multiple databases. That's really the biggest challenge that I've seen. Sorry, I took up so much time, but it was.
No, that's awesome. It's great information. I really appreciate it. That's phenomenal to hear. And just interesting. Is Intello still functionally? Is it a company, or is still exist, or was it acquired?
I haven't used it in at least 2 years, so I don't know what happened to it.
Okay, I just, for some reason, I had, he's no longer in the TA space, but John Bichet, who was the founder of it, was somebody that I had known for a while, and he's no longer with Intello, but I thought Intello had kind of become part of something else. Well, that's awesome to hear. So we've got a couple minutes left. Is there anything that, oh, Beth, that's great. Yeah, I think Gem sound, it's interesting to watch some of these platforms. And my observation is that they're borrowing the best practices from traditional marketing and bringing it into recruitment marketing, and dramatically changing the game in terms of how some of the systems like Gem are available to go out and engage and do things, which is awesome to see. And you're right, it is highly effective, having that multi-channel sequential email and text messaging going out to folks. Is there anything else that anyone would like to talk about, or any other systems that we hadn't mentioned that anyone on the call thinks is worth a shout out that they're getting value from? I always love to hear about new technologies. And today we've heard about Noon. We've heard about the one that somebody just mentioned, I already forgot the name of. Christopher, you brought it up. I should have written it down quickly, but I was too busy talking probably. But yeah, Covey, that's it. Yes. So, but yeah, is there anyone else that has any other technologies like that are new that they found some value or are exploring? Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's time today. We've only got a couple minutes left, and definitely I always try and end on time. But appreciate everyone's feedback, and it's great to see the discussions in the forum, and it's great to continually have the conversations here. So thank you everyone for being here. And just a quick shout out for next week. We have Ben Eubanks and Joel Cheeseman joining us to talk a little bit about what's scary in recruiting in 2025. I thought they are a couple of good sources of data to come to the conversation. So if you can join us, I would love it. I'm excited for that discussion, as I was for this one. And if there's anyone who has any questions or anything from today, shoot me a chat or an email, reach out, and I can help with connecting with any of the technologies out there, answering any questions. And just want to thank everyone again. And my dogs were even excited by this conversation. So that's the win right there. That's the litmus test. My dogs go nuts. Everyone's happy. So thanks everybody. And I'm going to let us get back to our day job. Thanks everyone. And I'm going to shut the call down now. Talk to you later.